It's Sunday, and that means it's time to pour up a pint with Colin, man. We've got the man Colin from the stronghold from his Swiss bank atop a Swiss bank in Switzerland. Because
Yeah,
that's you guys all live there. You all guys all live on top of banks. Like that's
I'm actually sitting on like gold. That's
it.
what I'm doing. Yeah.
He has a gold chair that he sits on when we talk. I am cracking the Guinness 0-0 this week. I tried to pick up something. I'd run to the store earlier, but I couldn't find what I needed. So this is what I'm drinking today.
Is that a glass? Let me see the glass.
That
Just
would be.
dump it. Just dump it straight in.
I don't want it to overflow, man.
It
Oh,
won't.
look at that. That's
It's designed to not overflow.
you talk about gold, man. Oh, that's gold, sir.
Dark gold.
It's cold out here, so like I guess I should be drinking a heavy beer because it is cold, man. Dude, like I want to say current temperature here is like 12 or 13, which is cold by Texas standards. But so this was something when we first started chatting that I always wanted to bring up because it was a time and place that things changed for Irish rugby. It was kind of when you went from being an also ran to being a powerhouse in the sport, and it was all kind of led by one man, a Kiwi man by the name of Joe Schmidt. And I think with a lot of the younger fans, they don't maybe necessarily have an opinion. If you're under the age of like 20, you probably don't remember him that well. But if you're a grown man like the two of us, you remember that era and you remember it well. And I was like, hey, let me find an actual of age Irish rugby fan to talk about the Joe Schmidt era of Ireland rugby.
Mm.
And I understand you have some opinions about it, maybe not 100% popular opinions at times, but opinions nonetheless.
Well, I'm gonna like. I mean, if anyone knows me, I'm a Munster fan. Like I'm primarily a Munster fan. Everything else comes after that.
So
But
it
yeah,
obviously was led off by his success with Leinster, winning a couple of Champions Cups, a couple of league titles. Obviously, this is what padded his resume
yeah.
to get him in line to take over the head coaching position of Ireland. So, are you saying from the offset you weren't a fan because he coached at Leinster, or was it just kind of like,
No, I wouldn't say that I wasn't a fan. There's only like one or two things that really pissed me off, pissed a few other Munster people off. But overall, he was incredibly positive. But there's a lot of negatives too. A lot of things that people have kind of alluded to or joked about, or kind of you know not really spelled out, but. Yeah, and like I mean, Joe kind of obviously he came from like New Zealand, the Blues, Auckland Blues. He was the assistant to Vern Cotter there, and he moved, I think, with Vern Cotter as well to Claremont Auvergne, and that's kind of where we first got to know Joe in the European Cup. Obviously, because Claremont were quite a big team at the time, and yeah, obviously he came to Leinster after Michael Cheika, and
I
like
always
really.
forget. I always forget that's where Michael Checo. Like it's always the hole in his resume that I completely forget about.
Yeah,
Is that he was at Leinster at one point? Like I totally forget about that all the time.
yeah,
So
he was there for the end of the Brian O'Driscoll era, really.
yeah, yeah.
Michael Cheika, and I think Joe might have been around. But I'm not sure if Brian played under Joe, but I could be wrong there. Now, Leinster fans, kill me if you want to. I don't care. So anyway, like yeah, like he was really obviously he won European Cups with Leinster, got the job. It was natural, really. The Irish rugby ecosystem like is very much once you're in the ecosystem, you're kind of in the line of succession. You know what I mean? And that's the way we like to do it. We bring coaches in at club level, and then kind of they go up the line at that point. So he was going to get it. He was obviously incredibly successful, and kind of revolutionized Ireland's approach to the game completely. I mean, we can look at the high level stats, which were incredible. They went from about I think it was 50-something% win percentage to 74% win percentage.
He finished it out with I believe a 72% win percentage overall. I'm actually going to pull up the stat sheet. I just kind of made a rudimentary stat sheet here. Nothing
Cool.
too fancy. Kind of have both of us on it here so you can kind of see. Three Six Nations championships, a Grand Slam in 2018, Triple Crown in 2018, World Rugby Team of the Year in 2018, a World Rugby Coach of the Year in 2018, RTE Coach of the Year in 2014, and the first time you were ever ranked number one, which was September of 2019, going into the 2019 Rugby World Cup.
Yeah.
So the stats don't lie. He was extremely successful as a head coach, but at the same time, I almost feel like he's also a bit of a polarizing character when it comes to Irish rugby. There's a lot of people that were like, it was a lot of, yeah, you get to see all this stuff, but they were like, there were a lot of things. And it's people like you, especially, who will say, hey, maybe it wasn't all as rosy as it seemed on the surface.
It certainly wasn't, no, for a fact. Like players that would be considered like, if we had a Hall of Fame for rugby here, they would be in that. Like guys like Simon Zebo, like he'd be like, I mean, he's an all-time try scoring for Munster. He was an incredible player. Like a guy that went away to France basically because he just didn't get on with Joe. Joe didn't fucking like him for whatever.
Did he
Whatever.
seem to show a lot of Leinster bias even as the head coach? Was that because you still see it to this day? There is a Leinster bias in Irish rugby. They,
Yeah,
they,
for
they do
sure.
carry a predominant majority of the players, and we've discussed this before.
Yeah.
But do you think Joe was kind of the catalyst for that to become like the main thing? Do you feel like his
No, like I think that bias is always there. But Joe, like in this particular instance, for a number of players, for instance, there's another guy, Donica Ryan, he would have been Paul O'Connell's line-out partner towards the end of Paul's career, and for a couple of years thereafter as well. A few years thereafter, actually, until kind of Joe came in, and Joe didn't really fancy him, but so he went off to France, and then as well, and people just assumed, oh, it's the end of his career, but he actually went on and played for another 4 or 5 years in France, and very, very successfully as well with Racing 92, and became like, he's a low key goated line-out coach at the moment. Like Ronan O'Gara has had him for since he took over at La Rochelle, but. Simon Zebo, he never really got on with him, and he was just basically shunned from the squad completely. Like that pissed an awful lot of people off, and that was all fine, and it was because as you said, they were winning things, but when the winning started to dry up and the teams started to catch on to their style, and I'll get into that now. So the style is essentially like he revolutionized Ireland's approach to the breakdown. So like where you have two cleaners at every breakdown, and that's, but you hit the breakdown with both barrels, one on the left and one on the right, and that just absolutely blasts the opposition out of it, And at the time, you could get away with really hitting a breakdown. They're starting to clamp down on it now, but
Richie McCaw made a career out of it.
yeah. Well, he was like, I joked online there the other day. He was like Hulk Hogan from the top ropes going into a breakdown. Like it was
Yeah,
just
yeah.
shocking. But
Do you think did he bring, in your opinion, was it a New Zealand style of rugby to
no,
Ireland, or do you think it was something completely different?
completely different, totally different. It was as if he didn't trust the players to play. What he did was, like his style was, you basically, and guys have said this, that their goal was to, when they carried the ball, was to set up another ruck. It wasn't about breaking a tackle. It wasn't about making a line break. He did have certain situations where he would have strike plays coming off of lineouts, and that's statistically where Ireland kind of were incredibly successful from
Yeah.
lineout strike plays off first and second phase, and we still are, like, because it's a really really good way to attack. But and off like off the back of scrums, he would have like strike plays to hit a team in the first 3 to 4 phases, but eventually like there was no real creativity. Guys weren't allowed. They were not allowed to offload. Offloading was completely off. You weren't. It was actually you weren't allowed to do it. Guys like Simon Zebo would have been totally against all that and decided to up sticks. Like, I'm gone. Sorry, I'm going to make some money in France. And while the guys that stayed were quite successful, eventually when that dried up, as I said, people were getting pissed off about it. They were like, all we're doing is box kicking for territory, kick and chase. We're running straight into the opposition. And yeah, I know I'm talking to a South African fan here, yeah,
That was
but
the bread and butter for South Africa. That's how they've done it. And I mean, like, I get it. You don't like I said, I think there's people that the Simon Zebo thing has been. You're not the only one that's brought that up. There was a Shane O'Brien who follows both of us on TikTok. He had a Simon Zebo enthusiast account, and he brought it up to me. He was like, "Man, Schmidt fucked Simon Zebo. Like, he could have been one of the best ever in history, and he just didn't gel well with him." And I mean, to explain how things went, I mean, like, look, you have to look at it as the historical point of view. I mean, Joe Schmidt won a fucking series in New Zealand. I mean, or was no, that was Andy Farrell. Excuse me.
yeah,
He
yeah.
beat New Zealand. Like, you had never beaten New Zealand in 100 years. He beat New
Mm,
Zealand in 2016. He beat them
yeah,
again. I was at the game in Chicago. New Zealand was on like a 17 game win streak. You guys ended that, turned around and did the exact same thing yourself, went on like a 17, 18 game tear.
yeah.
And like, so it's hard for me to sit here and say, like, oh, the guy was a bad coach, because the proof is in the
No,
numbers. He was a great coach,
he was a
but
great coach.
he wasn't perfect. And I still think I had called it when he signed with Australia that he was not going to make it to the next World Cup, and people ripped me apart for it. And sure enough, guess
Yeah.
what? He's not making it to the next World Cup. And I
But
don't think that's a Joe Schmidt issue. I think that's a Rugby Australia issue. I don't think it's him as a coach that doesn't work. It's because rugby is broken in Australia. But
Well,
you
the actual reason, because I assumed that from the start, but the actual reason has been, you see, like Joe's son is
he's got
Joe's
epilepsy.
son,
He's got epilepsy. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and he has to be close to him. So
So
if his son is in Australia, it's very hard for him to commit to be, long term. He's kind of, in fairness to him, he's always said that, like, he
yeah.
was he was sketchy about signing extensions with Ireland as well for that reason.
Even even in 2018, I found the interview because they hadn't renewed. It was pretty obvious that 2019 was his last year. They had asked him, like, "Hey, what's your long term plan here?" He's like, "Well, we're pretty established here in Ireland. Like, we live here.
Yeah,
Like, so we're gonna stick around for a while." And I believe he did. I think even after he had stepped down, you'd brought in Andy Farrell. He continued to live in Ireland until he got a call. Uh, uh,
yeah.
to come and be a forwards coach with the All Blacks. He got into the camp with Fozzie.
He,
So
he originally he originally came in as a selector,
yeah,
which was the
yeah,
new rule that was
which
invented
was
for him.
weird for All Blacks fans. They were just kind of like, "What? That guy's a selector?" I mean, like, look, man, you know, it's one of those things that, like, yeah, the guy's a great coach.
Yeah,
And he's gonna go down as one of the best, obviously, with everything he accomplished with Ireland. Um,
Leinster, yeah.
And I feel like the bar was set very highly for his
Mm.
predecessor and Andy Farrell. Interestingly enough, I just realized something last night about Andy Farrell and his son,
Which son?
Owen.
Owen, yeah,
Do you know how old Andy was when Owen was born?
yeah. He's pretty young.
He was 16. He was
Yeah,
16, man. Like,
they
which
played together as well.
That's for any of you guys that don't live in America, those are American numbers right there. 16 and having a kid it's not normal here, but it happens a lot more than people like to talk about.
Yeah.
For all the time I've spent outside of the US, 16 and having a kid is not normal. Is not normal. Yeah, especially in Switzerland, Germany, being 16 with a kid is not normal. And I realized that because I was like realizing because I was like, how old is he? He's 40, 46 years old. And I'm
Yeah.
like, how old is Owen? 30. Like, how the fuck how is that? And then I realized Andy was 16 when his kid was born. I'm like, Jesus Christ. No wonder they could play together. They played on a team together. And it's just like, oh god, I did not think that at all. But back on to Joe.
Yeah.
It was painfully obvious when he took over. Even for us as Springbok fans, we saw like Ireland was a pushover. You were pushovers for us and the All Blacks. You were a pushover team. I mean, you weren't Italy, obviously, but he turned you into a team that you had to watch. Like he turned Ireland into a team that was like, no, they can beat you. They can beat you. Uh,
Mm.
you had some really big names coming through at the time. I mean, especially during I think with Joe Schmidt, obviously the biggest names that he's going to have always is obviously Johnny Sexton, your
Yeah.
leading captain for so long. You had guys like Rory Best who went out during his era as well. I was
Mm.
always a huge Rory Best fan. Just I love the way the guy was in the scrums, and he was also just a short, fat, bald guy like myself. So, um,
Farmer. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, but then you had the Pat Lambie incident. That was an accident, I get it, but like for South Africans, that one hurt. That one hurt.
Okay.
He's one of those guys that's like we always wonder like what could have been. Thank you, CJ Stander. Anyways, but
Happens. Yeah.
it's I think more so. Do you think that Andy Farrell will leave a bigger legacy than Joe Schmidt?
Definitely, 100%. But it's very much one leading on from the other. It was like, I have to, like, my criticism is also my kind of compliment to him. Like, it's like the fact that he brought this new way to approach the breakdown meant that Ireland could retain possession indefinitely. You could you just could not get the ball off of Ireland. But if they didn't change their style, which eventually they did under Andy, when teams figured that out, they were like, okay, we don't need to commit guys to the breakdown. We just need to let them, because they're going if we commit three guys to that breakdown, then they're gonna retain that ball because they're so good at it. And we're missing two guys from the defensive line, so the opposition would typically just commit one guy to the breakdown and keep the full defensive line, and then Ireland were in trouble. And when teams kind of figured that out, it was all of a sudden just a stalemate. And the problem with Joe was he went into the 2019 World Cup and he hadn't changed anything, and he refused to change anything. And people were telling him results were not good as well. We had been beaten badly by England beforehand. And
I'm gonna look up the 2019 mid-year internationals just to see because we all know with the Rugby World Cup how everything ended up going, but I kind of wanted to look back at looking at what you guys did
situations, yeah.
to that. Uh,
So they had a warm up game against England right before, which went really fucking badly. But
where was that at? That England game.
ooh, where was it? It could have been in Twickenham. I'm not sure. I don't think it was Ireland. I could be wrong. I just remember he
Oh,
just refused to change the style. Guys were running straight into the opposition rather than looking for a gap. There was no real creativity in the attack except
yeah,
for strike plays, and teams were just, you know the way rugby is. You do
yeah,
something.
yeah, definitely. No, let me see if we can get see here, 2019. It's something I did want to go ahead and bring up because we were talking about leading into that World Cup, and something we talked about before I started recording the video today was um, Japan. So obviously we all know what happened in 2015. It was so devastating that they needed to make a bloody movie about it, starring Tamura Morrison. I brought that up. You said you hadn't seen it. The Bright Miracle, for anybody that's watching, yes, you can look it up online. Yes, it's a movie about the 2015 Japan team beating the Springboks in the pool game there. And 4 years later, they turn around and they do it again, but this time it's no Brighton Miracle. They don't make a movie about it. It did. Japan ended up also beating Scotland in the pool that year. So I mean, Japan deserved to make the quarterfinal based on those alone, right there.
Yeah, yeah,
But let's go back to that game because I'm going to share this screen and we're going to look at it. And it's weird for me to look at this because it's kind of one of those things where it's like I don't know if you're going to be able to see it that way. Hold on, we might have to just put it the whole
yeah. I
screen.
can see it.
So obviously, we look at the starting lineups here. I mean, Gary Ringrose still a regular guy. I had brought up Luke Carty. His brother Jack plays for the United States, plays for Chicago here. You said that was pretty much Jack Carty's last game, essentially, right?
Yeah, he got axed after that. He got blamed for it.
We got the veteran Munster guy, Connor Murray, starting at 9. This
Yeah.
son of a bitch starting at 8. God damn, TJ, you
You
bastard.
should have capped him. You should have given him a cap. He was brilliant.
Josh Vanderfleer, the Flying Dutchman. Actually, I'm not going to lie about Josh Vanderfleer. I actually thought like that was a South African, and then everybody's like, "No, man, his parents are Dutch, dude." But he was born in South Africa, or he was born in Ireland, and I was like, South Africans still to this day call him a South African. It's like, no,
It's his grandparents that are Dutch.
yeah,
They've been business owners. They've been here in Ireland for a long time.
yeah, like he's not South African. You got Peter
No.
O'Many, James Ryan, some of these guys. There he is, the captain, Rory Best, one of the greatest to ever do it. Ken Healy, Tag Furlong, and then you look at the bench, and some of these guys obviously are still around. Joey Carberry is no longer around. Jordan Larmer, Luke McGrath. I will say this. This is something I will say about this. If this was not your A squad at all, am I correct in saying that?
Well, obviously, I mean Johnny wasn't there to play 10,
Yeah.
but we were trying a guy. It was more to do with the style. It wasn't really like they hung Jack Carty out to dry, which is it was to be honest, it was unfair because he hadn't really been given much of a chance. Like he'd never really been given a run of games to get himself level, get himself ready to go into tests. He came straight from Connacht to, Connacht don't play in the Champions Cup regularly. Like you don't have a don't have a big step in. Like it's a massive step to go from there to playing for Ireland. I mean, even if you have
a environment and the World Cup, nonetheless. Yeah.
So they kind of hung him out to dry. But the reality of the situation was, at that point, Ireland's tactics were stale as 10-day-old bread. It was just.
You were saying leading into the World Cup, I was at that game in Chicago where you beat the All Blacks, and it looked like Ireland was on top of the world. Like you were kings of the world. And you said, but leading into the World Cup, that shine, it was wearing off. Was Joe Schmidt wearing his welcome out, basically, at that point?
Like, he just didn't, not really. Like, for a lot of guys, like, I mean, if you look at, like, Conor Murray was in that team, right? Murray, like, he's by far and away, country mile, our best ever, like, scrum half by a mile. Like, I mean, I would, if he was fit and in his prime, I would take him over Gibson Park, 100%.
Really?
Oh, for sure, absolutely, yeah. Like Conor was an incredible player until Joe Schmidt got a hold of him, and Joe fucking literally he took all the creativity out of the guy completely
and turned him into
box kicking machine. Like you could have just got a baseball, the thing that shoots the ball in the
yeah. It's a pitching machine. Yeah. So To be fair, for those of you that do follow the Springboks, you'll notice how Faf de Klerk isn't playing anymore. And if you want to know why, that's why. Because we had to get away from box kicking because it was killing us. So now we have two young guys that can run the ball at 9. So I get what you're saying. It eventually wears it out. It wore out in South Africa, and they've won World Cups on it. So
Yeah.
it was obviously wearing it out in Ireland. Of course, you go to the quarterfinal. You're done in the quarterfinal in 2019, and it was time to move on from there. Obviously, um, I still don't get how did Andy Farrell end up in the conversation as what was I mean,
He was the assistant coach.
oh, with Ireland already at that point? He was under Joe Schmidt? Okay, I did not know that. I did not know that that's how he got his foot in the door,
Yeah.
there in Ireland to say. But
So we
that's
completely Ireland transforms with Andy Farrell. Basically, now like the compliment, it still has to be put there because like Joe built the foundation of like basically how to retain possession is you really your breakdown has to be really really good, right? But
yeah,
the only way you can use that is if you play with speed, and that's our characteristic. So we've got medium-sized guys. We don't have massive man mountains like South Africa do. So South Africa,
yeah.
while I will say they played a similar size, the South Africans still weren't running straight into guys. They're
They're
looking to
looking
be
for
really,
gaps. They're looking for gaps. They
yeah, exactly. They weren't just looking to set up a ruck. Do you know what I mean? But yeah,
look, look, if my old man was still alive and he saw what South Africa used for wingers, he would be shaking his head. Like we went from a big beefy Brian Habana to guys that are like my height and shorter.
mm,
You
yeah,
know, we went from an era where wingers were expected to be 6'2", 6'3", to an era where our wingers are 5'7". Like it's we've had to change. We've adapted where we could. Obviously, the bread and butter for spring South African rugby will always be its forward pack, just big,
yeah.
bulky, battering ram style. But then you have to change. And I think that's the thing about Joe Schmidt was that it worked when it worked well, and it worked for a long time. But when it was time to change, he couldn't adapt. He couldn't adapt.
He point blank refused to adapt, and that's what actually led to the friction. Like people were saying that they didn't really. People were given hints that it wasn't a fun environment to be in at all. People
Really,
weren't. Yeah, and then conversely, the moment Andy Farrell took over, they were, oh, this is like Peter O'Mahony said this specifically. He said this is the best team environment I've ever been in. Now, and that was like the first year with Andy Farrell. Okay, so that he had been with Joe and won all those titles that you listed. So for him to say that so quickly with Andy Farrell implies that it wasn't so good back then. But so
I just found it. 24th of August 2019. Nigel Owens was the ref. It was at Twickenham Stadium,
check it out.
and you lost by a score of 57-15.
Yeah, that's beat the break right before a World Cup. Shocking.
And then you go to the World Cup, you beat Wales. The lead up to the World Cup was a 1910 victory over Wales, a 27-3 victory over Scotland. That was actually on my birthday. And then you have the loss to Japan. And then you had a couple of games in October. Oh, yeah. Then here's the Rugby World Cup. You beat Russia 35-0. You beat Samoa 47-5, and then knocked out in the quarterfinals by New Zealand 46-14.
Yeah, comprehensively beaten by New Zealand. Yeah,
Yeah. Damn, that's two World Cups in a row you lost to New Zealand in the quarterfinal. That
yeah,
sucks. That sucks. That look, it's the All Blacks. Look, I mean, it's not like you lost to, Japan in the quarterfinal or something. I mean,
I'm not emotionally scarred. As I said, primarily I'm a Munster supporter. I always will be.
yeah.
That's
So
that's one. Yeah,
at the end of the day, it was a great era for Joe Schmidt, but you think it could have gone a lot better than it did, especially towards the end. He had worn out his welcome. He wouldn't change, and the club suffered for it. You bring in Andy Farrell, obviously. We could go into great detail of what I think went wrong for Ireland in the 2023 Rugby World Cup. My biggest thing is that you didn't rest players.
Oh, fact, yeah,
You
yeah,
played your A squad every single game, and it showed on the score sheets. You saw some
yeah.
of the lopsided scores against Romania and Tonga that you racked up, and then when you got to the quarterfinals, your guys were gassed already. And I think that's something that, and I think
Joke.
Andy knows that, and I think he's trying to build some depth.
Yeah, he
And I
does.
think,
In fairness to him, he does know that because it was put to him. Like
yeah,
that was because everybody in World Rugby, like let's take kind of allegiances out of it. A
yeah,
lot of people in the world were saying this is the best team in the world. You know,
I had
coming into the World
I
Cup.
picked you to make the final.
Yeah,
You beat us in the pool. I had a rematch in the final. It was going to be Ireland in the Springboks in the final. And when you lost to the All Blacks in the quarterfinal, it was one of my most viral videos I made where I absolutely fucking went off because it was like this was an All Blacks team that was not that fucking good.
no, it wasn't.
Um,
Ireland were just tired. That's
well,
all they were.
I first round of the 2023 Rugby World Cup on the Super Brew site, I was number one in the world for 1 week, and you want to know why? Because I picked the exact score that France would beat New Zealand by. I picked it exactly on the money. I knew France was going to double up the All Blacks. I knew it was going to happen. Because I just didn't think the All Blacks were that damn good. They just
No,
weren't good enough. And even like the pool game between Ireland and the Springboks, you didn't dominate us.
no, it wasn't. It was a very close. Like it was an incredible test
Beat
match,
us
but
by 5 points. It wasn't like a dominant effort. It
no.
was both teams played supreme level defense. You just were able to capitalize in moments that the Springboks weren't. And it wasn't like we went in. You could see the interviews after the game with South Africa fans, regardless of the shit that was put out on the internet that, oh, Evans said Johnny said this or whatever. I don't
No.
believe any of that actually happened. I think that's all bullshit. I think it was all put
Yeah,
out there to add. I think at the end of it, you could see the South Africa fans were like, "Yeah, we're not worried. Like, we'll see him in the final." Like,
Mm.
and that was it. And that was it. That was how we looked at that game. We didn't look at it like, oh, we're in trouble. We're not going to make no. Like
Like
we were.
I can tell you for a fact, even if it was said, it would be coming from a place of like if I'm shaking your hand, you're an SA player at the time. I'm shaking your hand and I'm saying, "Hard luck. We'll see you in the final." That means I still think you're going to make the final.
Yeah, yeah, and that's how I felt about Ireland. Even after that game, I was like, we're still going to make the final, and so are they. Like it was no question in the 2023 leading into it who the top two teams in the world were. We
Yeah,
had beaten the All Blacks in Twickenham. We were better than the All Blacks. You guys were in the middle of a historic unbeaten streak. There were no questions going into that Rugby World Cup in 2023 who the two best teams in the world were. Now, everybody was giving France a lot of props because it was being held on their home soil. I never gave. Honestly, the toughest game in that elimination round was the France game. England actually wasn't that bad either. They adapted really well. We only won by 1 point every game in the eliminations. It was Ireland. Ireland was the toughest game because we lost. That was the
exactly.
toughest game. You guys bucked up, you fronted up, you did what you need to do. And even in the summer afterwards, when you did the 2 series tests to South Africa,
Yeah,
you lost game one, second one, you came out, smacked us in the mouth, and you adapted and overcame. And that's when I said that's the difference between good teams and great teams. Great teams can fucking rebound.
Mm.
Good teams can win games. Great teams can go into a second test against a team and realize, okay, we need to change this, and this to get a win. And
Yeah,
that's what Andy Farrell did. We did not see that in the Six Nations this year. And obviously, you finished in third place. It is what it is.
so it's
You realize
interesting. Sorry,
coaching. It's interesting to realize how much coaching has to do with success.
Oh, 100%. I think there's a bit of reverb going on there when you're with the mic, but I would say it's interesting we're having this conversation because it's you get to a certain point with a certain set of tactics, and you just need to change. Do you know what I mean? And it's almost as if you get to that stage, it's too late. You're going to suffer for a while now because you're going to have to adapt in real time, and teams are going to be looking at you, and you're making stupid mistakes, and that's kind of where Ireland are now. Because when you have a set of tactics, it takes a while for guys to really get on the same wavelength, and in that process, guys are dropping balls or making handling errors, things like that. So that's when you see that from a team, but particularly with Ireland, that's what's actually happening. Maybe they're running tactics that are different in training. They're developing stuff. Do you know what I mean? But it's okay. Like at this early stage of the cycle, it's okay. But it seems like I'm actually happier. I'm happier like after this year because it looks like Ireland are actually planning a cycle for the World Cup. Do you know what I mean? Like you need to make mistakes right now. You have to remember South Africa in between World Cups can be pretty ropey as well. Like it can be dodgy.
You're not peaking at the wrong time.
Well,
You're
yeah,
not
we don't want to
peaking
pink.
at the wrong time.
Yeah, we've always peaked at the wrong time. Do you know what I mean? Now, there's lots of reasons for that as well. Like when you think about it, there's lots of reasons. Like we talked about the Ireland Italy game when we did our kind of when we were looking forward to it, and or when the team was announced, and you were saying why the hell are they playing these guys, and I was saying, well, the difference between one position and the position below is about 1.4 million, so that's why they've got the strongest guys out. They've got to, so it's
Financially, they have to.
financially you have
It's
to do
yeah,
it, so you're kind of caught up in a bit of a catch-22 situation, so you have to get results right now, but you want to put guys out and let them make mistakes, and I guess that's what they did, with Prendergast, but I don't know, like it depends. If we get past the quarter final, if he does the business in the next World Cup, all will be forgiven. It'll be, but
well, for those that don't know, we have expanded tournament this next World Cup. There are going to be 4 extra teams being brought in, so it looks like there will be an additional round added to the elimination.
jeez.
So you have to win one more game to try and win it all. I'm not big on the expansion of the tournament at all. Period. Just
Well,
um,
I agree with you. I agree, and
because there's too many Namibias. There's too many Namibias because you're not adding 4 Fijis. You're adding 4 Namibias. You're adding teams that like the United States. This was something that another reason why I lost a lot of followers was when Romania was playing in the World Cup and you had Americans saying, "Oh, we could do better than this," and I'm like, dude, you couldn't even qualify. Romania at least qualified.
mm,
Like you're not any better. If you're not going to a World Cup, you can't say anything about teams that did.
yeah,
Period. Period.
yeah,
Um,
it's a big achievement for those teams. Like, yeah,
yeah, I mean, Chile got their very first qualification in history. I
I
actually
remember that.
knew the Chilean hooker because he played here in Dallas for a while, Augusto Bom, and people have asked like, how did that happen? Well, Super Rugby Americas is how that happened. They have their national team pretty much playing in a competition together year round. And that's why Chile was able to qualify, but they also were able to qualify because they beat America. Like they beat the United States. United States went to a rep charge tournament. They just had to beat Portugal. Portugal tied. Portugal got in. We did. The end. That's how it is. And you're not adding, like I said, they're not adding 4 Fijis. They're adding 4 Namibias. They're adding 4 Romanias. They're adding 4 Chiles. They're adding, you know what I mean? They're not, you can't even say Uruguay because Uruguay actually wins games in World Cups now.
Mm.
They're not adding 4 good competitive teams. They're adding 4 more teams that are going to get 90 points put up on them, which that was the biggest shock about the 2023 Rugby World Cup was how bad Italy was. Jesus Christ, they were terrible. That All Blacks versus Italy game was painful, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
it's especially for a World Cup. Everybody likes to watch all the games, and it's to really get into the atmosphere of it. But to watch that, like you lose interest after 10 minutes. Good luck,
it was painful. It was real
Yeah.
painful. Some of Namibia's games were really, and I mean, um, the coach of Namibia was the former head coach of the Springboks when they were in their worst time in history, Alistair Coetzee. And obviously the opinions about him are bad, but he had a post game after they lost another really bad game in the World Cup, and he had brought up like, "Do you know how many tight head props I have in the entire country? Like, we have three,
Jeez.
three,
Yeah.
three. Like, we don't have anybody. There's no money being pumped into this program, and it's hard to win when you don't have resources. It's bad
What's
enough when
that?
you don't have resources. It's even worse when you don't have players. And
Oh, for sure.
you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of Namibians playing here in the U.S. because this is really it for them. Like, they can't get on. South African rugby has grown so much where they don't really have a spot anymore. So,
For me, I would say like the thing about like expanding the World Cup is like just get it right first, please. Just get it right first, and then okay, if you get it right, like my instinct when you said expanding it, I was like, okay, so does that mean Ireland, South Africa, like Scotland in the same group, and then New
dude,
Zealand,
that,
France,
that
and
was the worst part about the last World Cup. The
it's a
groups A
joke.
and B were stacked. Group C and D, dude, England had a cakewalk.
Oh,
England had a cakewalk.
yeah, so get it right before you
Yeah,
expand it. You know what I mean?
Scotland should have not been in our pool. Period.
Yeah.
Scotland would have been a quarterfinal team had they been in C or D. They would have been a quarterfinal team, and I felt so bad for not really, but at the same time, it's like you knew that like when you've got the rankings, and in one pool you've got three of the top five teams in one pool. Come on, man. That was whack because it was like you at one, we were at three, and Scotland was at five.
Mm. And then, like, literally, we didn't know if we wanted to lose to South Africa or beat them. Do you know what
Yeah,
I mean? And then it came down to it, and sure, but it seemed like neither team was like they walked off the field. It was like, well, I don't really know if that was good or bad, but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So
Because we didn't know what was going to happen with Scotland, and fortunately, both of us beat Scotland, which was kind of a given, anyways. But and then we got some fun games against Romania and Tonga. I thought those were. I don't know how you felt about them. I know you put your A squad out. We put a B squad out. Both of those obviously won both games. That Tonga game was fun. We hadn't played Tonga since 2007 in that World Cup, and that was when I became a. There's a reason I have a Tongan flag on the wall. That was when I became a Tonga fan. Was that 2007 World Cup? Those guys are entertaining as hell to watch. They're just
yeah,
big, brutish. It's Fiji is the SAS, Samoa is the Special Forces, Tonga is the infantry, Tonga is the grunt, Tonga is the grunts. They're the guys in the dead. They're the guys in the trenches. Like that's what I always loved about them. It's if you want to put a military look at it. So
yeah. I remember that. Like, I mean, we got scared. Like Ireland got scared. They were like, "Oh, but what about all these big, huge fucking,
Ben Tomafina, that prop that starts from that guy is like the size of a house, man. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I remember that. Was it the front row? Was it? He was
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely
he's that really
massive.
big. He plays in France. He actually had caps with New Zealand U20s. He was born in New Zealand, and I remember when we were playing against them. They're at the line, and like all he had to do was get the ball and just fall. Like, there's no way you're going to stop him. Like, he's huge. Like, and you love
Yeah,
that. You love to see those big boys that because he can move really well for a fact. Like a big boy, he can move really fast, and you're like, whoa, you're not supposed to. There's that guy that plays for France. That's the same way. They got like
Tuilagi.
no, for not now, like, older guy. He's, God, because he
Oh,
played here in the Major League Rugby for a year as well, and he's kind of a really big boy that you're just like, "You're not supposed to move that fast." Well, Uh, Dan Sheehan, I need you to come to America. We need to put a gut on you, sir, and you can be added to that category of fat guys that shouldn't move that fast. Because Dan
Uh,
Sheehan shouldn't move that fast, and he moves very. Look,
he's like a center.
dude, I'm a Malcolm Mark stan for life. He's great. He's one of the greatest ever. But man,
Mm.
Dan Sheehan this year has shown me he's like, hey, my hands up, man.
Yeah, after coming back from ACL, I think it was an ACL. I'm not sure, but
That's what Malcolm Marks is going to be coming back from too. So he's already come back a little bit from it, but it's like he's one of those big guys that you didn't think had that kind of mobility, and you're like, son of a bitch, that guy can move. Like
yeah, yeah,
number
yeah,
two isn't supposed to be your fast guy; he's supposed to be your slow guy. Like it's he's supposed to be able to do lineouts and push, and that's about it. Dan Sheehan can take the ball and run. He can run with the ball. Like
he's an incredible player. He's an incredible player. But yeah, I would say, I mean, like, yeah, we are talking about like Ireland's failings at the last World Cup. I'm looking at like the game we watched yesterday and just how you know the younger Munster forwards stood up. I specifically called it out as like Gavin Coombs, Thomas Ahern, John Hodnett. This is their chance to do it in the Champions Cup, and then if no one can say they haven't done it at the highest club level, then you can't say but you have to perform. You have to do it. Like you can't not perform in those games and then turn around and say I need to be in an Ireland squad because you don't get that privilege. So you've got to do it.
you're
And
having the same issue we had with Cameron Hennecom in South Africa. Like he's such great club level, but because you're so stacked on your test team, it's hard to get him a moment in.
yeah.
And Coombs finally got some playing time, obviously, but like it's kind of it's obviously he's gonna. I think going forward, he's gonna have more of an opportunity with guys finally kind of hanging up the boots, that kind of thing. So it'll be his chance to
Mhm.
kind of step in there and show like, hey, I'm the next generation. I'm for the next two World Cups at least.
Well,
So
he's pushing on himself. He's about 20. I think he's 27.
but you got him
So
at least for this next World Cup, if not the
yeah,
one
yeah.
afterwards.
But
So
I mean, the plan should be, you know, like you should never be playing these guys against tier two nations or lower tier one nations. Like you
yeah,
should never be playing them. Like um, you have to have a bigger squad than that. Like you
yeah,
absolutely must have a bigger squad than that because guys can't be at the even inside the season they can't be at the peak of their performance for the whole season long. Like
yeah.
it just doesn't work. You've got guys that are hitting right now they're hitting top form, for the Champions Cup and for the lead into that, and then they have a big break or whatever. So you'll have a tour then, to play, tier two nations. But
Yeah,
those guys,
your Irish tour this upcoming summer, you're definitely playing the tier two nations. I think you're doing Romania, Spain, and Portugal. I think, or maybe Georgia.
I think George is in there as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, we finally got what Scotland's getting. They're getting the Māori All Blacks, Samoa, and Japan. That's what Scotland's getting. England is coming to the U.S. and then going to Argentina. Italy's yeah, Italy's got the bad one.
But like,
They're going to South Africa.
isn't Argentina coming? Oh, sorry, Argentina's coming to play Munster. They're coming to play
Oh, no,
Munster.
so
Right?
Argentina is going to be the final game of the Rugby Championship. Will be Argentina and the Springboks at Twickenham, because of how successful the Wales versus Springboks game was, and then obviously the All Blacks versus Springboks game leading into the 2023 Rugby World Cup. The games sell out. You have a lot of expats living, South
Yeah.
African expats living in the
London.
United Kingdom, so
Yeah.
it does well for them. And I mean, I'm not mad about it at all. I just wish they'd come and play in the U.S. every once in a while. I mean, like good on for Ireland playing the All Blacks in Chicago. Bad on for the ticket companies for ripping us off, but I'd like to see that. I honestly, living here in the U.S., this kind of came up this morning. there was an article in SA Rugby magazine saying we will never host another Rugby World Cup in South Africa, and then people getting in the comment section like crime, yada yada yada, and then I'm like, laughs in America 2031. Like, if you're saying you can't do it in South Africa because of crime, then why the hell is it being held here?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
BS.
And you know why it is. It's money. It's money. It's
Yeah.
strictly money. That's all it is. It's
Oh,
money.
fact,
It's
fact of God. Like, there's no like, World Cup is a money sucking exercise. It doesn't.
have you heard the numbers from France? They lost money
Of
on the
course, it is.
2030
Yeah,
2023. They lost money on it. It was just like, damn. Well, look at the Olympics. I'm not a fan of that shit because really all it is it's an excuse for you to go, hey, everybody, look how much money we have to piss off. Like, that's all it is. It's not a, oh, they tried to mask it. Oh, it's goodwill. And it's, no, it's not, dude. It's about the host nation shoving their cash in everybody's face. Look how rich we are. That's all it
yeah,
is. It's not about
yeah,
sportsmanship and pride. No, dude. Because if it was about sportsmanship and pride, tell me why there's two countries that lead the medal count, and the third country behind them is like well over 500 medals behind them. It's China and the United States. They've won the most medals of any country in the world, countries in the world.
mm, yeah,
It, it's not about sportsmanship. It's about how much money you can piss off, is all it is. And that's, but we love it because we love the game of rugby. So we're willing to put up with it. But like this whole idea that, oh, we can't do it in South Africa because, no, you don't want to do it in South Africa because there's not enough money. Like,
yeah.
you're
Like, just to give people kind of context, so um, like our, that I'm slightly biased, but anyone will back it up. Like, my Ireland is the, like, for the population and the amount of professional teams we have, we're by far and away the best organized union by a mile, country mile. Like, we're not losing any money. Like, and then they came out with a report, the most recent report. They said we're actually, like, we took a loss at the World Cup and we're still trying to recoup it. Now, they've moved an awful lot of games, so you'll see an awful lot of games in bigger stadiums like Croke Park,
Croke
which is,
Park. That's last weekend. We had Croke
yeah,
Park once again.
yeah,
80,000, I think, is what it seats. So
that's what it holds. There was 55 at the game, but yeah, so, like, that's coming from the union. Like, they're pushing the clubs to say, okay, let's hold it at bigger games because we need to make the money. Full stop.
yeah,
So, just, it has a knock-on effect for all of the unions. Like, if you're going to Rugby World Cup, I just don't see why it should be you should be taking a loss, because all the advertising companies make a fortune out of it. So where's the money going? It's going
yeah.
into,
It's look. I've said this on my own many times on this channel, and I'll say it again. World Rugby is going to fuck around and become FIFA. And
yeah,
FIFA is a criminal organization. They've
fact.
already been convicted of it. They've
Yeah, money is over.
Qatar was bought. They bought that World Cup.
Yeah, straight up.
Saudi Arabia bought that World Cup.
Yeah,
Russia bought their World Cup.
and they're
Hosting.
probably going to try and buy a Rugby World Cup as well, but they'll have to build indoor stadiums because it's not going to work,
Well, I mean, that's
and
like,
no drinking.
yeah, that's the problem. That's like the thing is that like, and I get it. World Rugby wants to be successful. You want to grow the sport, but I've talked about this many times. It's like, look, dude, rugby is not even in the same echelon as soccer worldwide. It's not even in the same. It's not
No,
even close to its popularity. Like,
certainly not. No.
I mean, I mean, the countries that rugby is played in, the Six Nations, every single one of them, soccer is the bigger sport, and in most of them, soccer is the bigger sport by a lot. Like, it's not like, oh, it's a little, no, like, dude, the difference between the Barclays, I think, is it Barclays still Premiership?
Yeah, something like that. I couldn't care less.
That's the soccer one, right? Is
Yeah.
Barclays, and their rugby Premiership is like,
Mm.
dude, the rugby one puts up 1/25 of its value compared to the soccer one. It's not even
Yeah.
close, and it's like, I get rugby wants to grow and they want to expand and they want to go into new markets, but it's like, you're gonna fuck around, and I mean, you're already killing the integrity as it is. You're just gonna fuck around and muck it up even more. and
Yeah,
that's what
yeah.
it is. That's what it is. The end.
Like I think so. I think this there's so much potential in the game, but there's a lot of stuff we don't know about as well. There's a lot of contracts, a lot of we really don't know where the money is going, and then like you have clubs going bust in England. You have the state of the situation in Wales. Wales, by the way, would have been the country that bucks that trend. They would have been like rugby was their official number one sport, like their actual national sport,
It's not
but
anymore. It's
it's
soccer
not.
now. It's
Yeah, it's
soccer
soccer.
now.
Yeah, which is terrible. But
Hey, hey, man! There's a reality TV series about it. Okay.
is there?
Uh, Ryan Reynolds, the actor Ryan Reynolds, guy
Oh
who
yeah.
plays Deadpool. So him and a guy from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia bought a third division or fourth division team in
Oh
in,
yeah.
in Wales, and they're now in the top league. So like Americans know about Welsh soccer now because of a reality TV show. I mean, look, dude, I'm not mad at him. I mean, Ryan Reynolds is also Canadian, so I have to love the guy as well. But um, it's. I wish they had done it with a rugby team. Like, wouldn't it be cool to see like, for all the posturing that Jason Momoa does for the All Blacks? Why don't you go and buy a rugby team, man? Why don't you buy one of the Major League Rugby teams and help that? But they don't want to because that doesn't help their brand. So, Alona Mar, who's the most popular American rugby player in history, do you know what she's doing right now?
Probably TV or something.
Dancing with the Stars, the tour.
Stop the lights. Shocking.
You know
Yeah.
why she's doing that? Because women's rugby in America doesn't pay your rent.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
she went and played in the Premiership with Bristol, had a great time, did really well in my opinion.
Mm.
She's going to be playing for the USA Women's this year. The games that the USA summer schedule leading into the Women's World Cup this year. The women's games have all sold out because of Alona Mar. And none of them are being played. They're all being played in Major League Soccer stadiums. So we're talking minimum capacity 28, 30,000. The men's games are being played in a high school stadium in Carolina.
Yeah.
Like that's how much she's brought to the game here.
Yeah.
I know people that bought tickets as soon as the tickets went on sale to the Kansas City game. Like she's going to be playing in Kansas City. They were like, I want to go see her play. And it's like if USA men's rugby was smart, they would be doing curtain raisers for every one of her games. Have the USA play Spain before the USA women's play. You'd sell 30,000 tickets every game. Every game. But
That,
it's not
that,
it's
yeah,
not
that's kind of a no-brainer. Like that's generally how rugby works.
because the people that run USA Rugby are NBA National Basketball Association execs. They know nothing about the sport. They know nothing about the marketing of it. They know nothing about the sport. It's terrible. But we'll do that on another one. I just wanted to get on here to talk a bit about Joe Schmidt. We did a bit. We talked about Andy Farrell. We talked about Irish rugby overall. My pint is done.
Yeah, mine too. And hopefully I've alienated myself from Leinster fans, and if not,
I don't think they're
you
gonna
can just
care, dude. They're not gonna
you
care.
can just search me on TikTok and
Yeah. Dude, the beef is real on TikTok. If you're not on TikTok, you want to see some battles, see Leinster and Munster fans. I mean, it's not a bloody battle. It's not the Troubles era. Like, I gotta bring that up because you're Irish,
yeah,
but it's
yeah.
pretty
Oh,
nasty,
it's
man.
pretty
It's
nasty, all
it's
right. Yeah, it's pretty nasty.
it's I mean, you can get. I've seen some pretty foul things said by both camps. I have a tendency to lean in one direction. Maybe it's because I own the jersey
Good,
already.
good, good, good.
And if you thought it was bad this year, wait until next year. It's going to be 10 times worse, fellas, because I am a Clayton McMillan guy, and he's going to bring Munster back to the top where they belong, where their history has shown. And all I have to say is, good luck to the Blue Brigade. Enjoy it while you're on top, because with Clayton McMillan at the helm, you're not going to stay there forever.
Nice, nice.
You've got your 10 in lock. You've got lockdown with Jack Crowley. He's sticking around. You're in good
Yeah,
hands. McMillan can build around that. Clayton McMillan. You got Gavin Coombs. He's got a solid forward. He's got a solid lock. He's got a solid 10. He can build everything around him. And as we saw this weekend, you've got a really, really versatile guy that can play 14 and 15 really, really well, and Takir.
So happy with him. So happy with him. But he went off injured, didn't he?
Yeah. I haven't heard anything of the nature of the injury. If it was that bad, you would have heard it already. If it was an MCL, ACL, we would have heard already. They would have told us within 12 hours. So he'll go see a physio. I'm sure he'll be fine. But thank you once again, Colin, as
Delighted.
always. Cheers, man.